to Alton's story. I'm your host, Frederick Smith, author of and narrator for The Acquired Taste for Adventure, a D&D audiobook series based upon actual Dungeons & Dragons games. And with that, let's get started. Alton's story, The Acquired Taste for Adventure, Chapter 6, continued. Alton, the halfling rogue, produced a crowbar from his pack and began the task of cracking open the crates inside Bulk's room. All were emblazoned with the same stenciled image of a dragon's head, and while most contained the same bedrolls and blankets he had found earlier, some others were filled with rows of carefully arranged short swords and daggers. He then looted Bulk's personal war chest, which contained a few pieces of dried meat, likely for his pet warg Ripper, along with 40 gold pieces, 10 pieces of silver, and a few hundred copper coins. Alton sighed at the smattering of coinage, dismayed by the paltry sum. At this point, his only hope was that Dornan would be forthcoming with gold when they found him, because, after splitting it 5 ways, the pile of loot they'd found barely amounted to anything. And even more worrying was the fact that they still didn't know where Dornan had been taken. Was he even still alive? Dead gnomes told no tales after all, but they also paid out no rewards. But there was one particularly interesting thing that Alton found, an idol of a frog, carved from a dark green jade and possessing oversized eyes of inset gold. The halfling brought the item to Erevan, who quickly declared it to be magic. The elf noble would have to perform a ritual to divine its purpose, but this would have to wait, as he was simply too exhausted for the undertaking now. He did, however, advise against anyone playing with the item too much until he knew exactly what it did. Leaving the group to finish their final wound dressings, Jazzberry was compelled to draw near to where Ripper, the warg, lay helpless. After whispering a few blasphemies to herself in the infernal tongue, she then plunged her dagger into the heart of the warg, killing it. The tiefling's eyes went completely black for a moment, sclera, iris, and all, and a demonic voice started issuing unholy utterances from somewhere deep within her throat. Then her eyes cleared, and the bard smiled broadly at the group, appearing normal again. Upon seeing what she had done, the dagger in her bloody hands and the dead warg lying before her, she recoiled a bit. Stuttering, the pink-hued devil bard tried to explain herself. It was much too dangerous to leave alive, and besides, it was suffering. She smiled meekly and began to try to wipe the blood off her hands with a rag, as the rest of the group all exchanged worried glances. Alton wasn't sure what to think. Jazzberry was his oldest friend, and she'd always seemed a little strange, her powers equally so. But she'd been acting especially odd since they'd started fighting monsters down here in the caves, her playful nature now seemingly tinged by a hue of unnerving cruelty. He resolved that he would talk to her about it sometime later, when he had a better opportunity for conversation, as now wasn't the time or place, both surrounded by the ears of others and the unsafe environs within the goblin warrens. Moments stretched into hours as the adventuring party methodically searched room to room. They eventually realized they were alone in the dripping caverns, while collecting a few more items from hiding places they found scattered about. Throughout many of the rooms they found more wooden boxes, all marked with the same black dragon logo, and all consisting of the same items that could have equipped a small advancing army. They also found several dead bodies of different humanoid beings in the tunnels, apparently deposited by the monsters over time. Thankfully, Dornan was not among them. Inside another room that was set up as kennels for the wargs, Malik found Keldorn's armor, prominently decorated with a 5-pointed crown, an emblem which belonged to the Lord's Alliance. The dwarf barbarian had met members of the Alliance before out on the road, and they'd proven to be both helpful and brave, though typically not open to discuss their true intentions for being where they were. The organization's stated goals: to defend cities and settlements from outside threats and to preserve security and prosperity. Seemed honest and forthright enough. Still, though, the agent's presence merited asking a few questions. Because the adventuring party had not found their gnomish friend, and because the ox cart of supplies had been their original responsibility, the group decided they would need to press on with their load to the town of 3 Towers. Then, after delivering the goods to the tavern, they could carry on with the task of finding Dornan. The group went over the bodies of the dead persons, just in case they carried anything that might identify them, because the possibility existed that someone in town might know who the dead were in life. Unfortunately, they found little more than a few unremarkable trinkets upon them, except for one body. This one, which had been chewed upon by the wargs, possessed a small golden medallion hanging on a leather cord around his neck. It consisted of 5 dragons' heads emerging from a central point, each one of the scaly beasts facing in a different direction. The group didn't recognize it, but it appeared to be a holy symbol of some sort. Erevan, the high elf noble, decided to secure this valuable among his belongings, as for some reason, the group didn't trust Alton being left in charge of anything made of gold. It was quite insulting, honestly. Pardon the interruption, but if you're enjoying my work, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment down below. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to receive notifications whenever I upload a new video. The party rejoined Keldorn to deliver his armor. The agent of the Lord's Alliance had fallen asleep by the fireside, but awakened when he finally heard them approaching.
"Oh, thank the gods, and you brought me armor."
He started to stand, but immediately thought better of it.
"I could hear your scrapping down the tunnels. Glad to see you're still alive."
Malik, also heard from all his encounters with the monsters, struggled to lay down the wooden box that was filled with Keldorn's armor.
"Aye, alive I am, and my drinking arm will soon be healed, I hope."
The dwarf barbarian chuckled along with Keldorn, who was in an equal state of misery and good humor.
"I'm glad to return your armor to you, lad, but these are the trappings of a member of the Lord's Alliance, right? So why exactly were you out here, if you don't mind me asking, of course?"
Keldorn looked uncomfortable and paused for a long moment, quite unsure of what to say. But after a low grumble, he finally responded. "In most cases, if someone asked me business about the Alliance, I tell him I didn't know what they was talking about. But you all want me trust, and by the gods, I think you've earned it. I was on my way to Three Towers as well, being sent by the Alliance to look for a magician what calls himself Iarno, who they believe might have hidden himself there. He was one of our number in Waterdeep, where he killed the daughter of another one of the lords there, rumoured to be his lover, no less. The leadership of Waterdeep was hoping to deal with it themselves, without involving the other city chapters." Keldorn let the matter lay there. There was no need to tell any more unless he was pressed with further questions. Alton already understood. The Lord's Alliance was a group of nobles committed to the common defense of their cities and lands, and they fought against the forces of monstrous darkness. They employed a number of agents, including mages, clerics, soldiers, spies, etc., and sent them out on missions, both as individuals and allied forces, if the goal was grand enough. While each one was certainly motivated to defend their own cities and lands first, the defensive pact they all honored made for an effective force whenever it was called upon. In this instance, however, the leadership of Waterdeep was deliberately operating alone, trying to make this particular event disappear before it diminished any of the city's influence within the echelons of the group writ large. "Hold on," Alton said, as suspicious as ever. "Why were you traveling with Dornan, specifically?" Keldorn looked slightly annoyed at the halfling.
"Well, I wasn't spying on him, if that's what you mean. We was both in Neverwinter, and Dornan knew I was headed south, and he asked me to travel with him. I agreed because he's my friend. I was already headed to Three Towers, and I didn't think it would hurt if he chased down a few leads that was already on the way. You have to understand, this wasn't the first time he'd gone looking for that blasted cave. It's not like I expected him to find anything. I just wanted to travel with my friend, because we'd both be safer on the road together. And when we got to Three Towers, I'd go about me business, and he'd go about his. None of this was supposed to happen."
He paused for a moment, sensing the next question.
"But I am going to report back what I've learned about Bulk and all this stolen loot, and about the mine as well. In the interest of maintaining peace, intelligence like this has to be evaluated, see what threats could come from it. What with garbos and bugbears involved together? Dornan would agree with me, even if he didn't know about it."
Keldorn wanted to make himself feel better about his own duplicity, but the group agreed the wounded man wasn't wrong. While the group understood the man's early reluctance in telling them about his real reasons for being there, they did at least feel that he was being truthful with what he told them now.
Whether or not it was the whole truth, however, remained to be seen. The group decided a full night of rest was in order before they left the caves, so they again set about making a temporary barricade of crates to defend themselves. Bedrolls and blankets were stretched out, and the fire restocked to provide more warmth. Jazzberry sang them a serenade, too, while Alton tried to make himself as comfortable as he could, lamenting the lack of any good food or actual beds. Keldorn continued talking, this time voluntarily offering more information. Listen, you all seem like a brave lot, and Dornan's lucky to know you. And while he is my friend too, I'm still under orders from the Alliance. So when we get back to Three Towers, I won't be able to look for him till I complete my mission to find Iarno. But you can, straight away. Now, I'm sure that Dornan was taken because of the cave. He talked about it many times, but to be honest, most of it I dismissed. Now I wished I'd paid him more mind when he was talking. But I know he'd spoken about needing a key to get inside, and even though its location was known to him, he hadn't found it yet. I'd imagine that's why he was taken, to help them find the key to get into the cave. I mean, I don't really know that any of this is true, but it sure seems like someone other than Dornan thinks it is. Idriana, the half-drow, got Erevan's attention and said something to the other elf in his language, and they went to conversing back and forth for a few long moments, with Erevan relating what Keldorn had just told them. After a time, Erevan turned back to the group and spoke. Idriana says that the bugbear mentioned a name. It translates to spider, or perhaps the spider. It's a bit tricky, but the definite article doesn't seem to carry the same weight in Undercommon, so the contextual implications sound subtly different between the two, but Bulk asked her, "Were you sent here by the spider?" She thought at first that he was talking about the drow's spider goddess Lolth having sent her, but perhaps that's not what he meant. Does that name, the spider, mean anything to you? Keldorn thought about it. I think Bulk mentioned it once or twice when he was questioning me. I don't know for sure, but I guess that's who they're working for. Keldorn glanced at the half-drow ranger from the side of his eye. But I never got the impression that it had anything to do with their kind. Keldorn sneered. It was difficult for him to hide his distaste at having Idriana so near to him. So, what's the story with all this loot? Alton chimed in. And what's this black marking, if you know? It's a mark of a Black Dragon Company. They're merchants, dealing mostly in field supplies, small hand weapons, short swords and the like. Good for stocking up rabble. I'd guess the Garbos were attacking anyone they passed on the road, stealing what they could. Probably got lucky and nicked a few cots with all this. I mean, I suppose it could have been targeted with intent, but I doubt it. Keldorn went into another anecdote about another time he dealt with Black Dragon merchants back in his homeland of Waterdeep, and the group seemed satisfied to let him go on talking, as they felt he had already related everything useful he knew about Dornan and his possible whereabouts. Alton had to wonder at the number of stolen items stockpiled here, though. It seemed like an awful lot of stuff.
And that is where we are going to leave it for today. But rest assured, we will pick up from where our story left off in next week's episode. Thank you so much for staying until the end of the video. And if you enjoyed what you heard, please consider donating to my Patreon, which you can find linked in the description. I appreciate all of you. And until next time, please be kind to yourselves and to each other.